Chuck, we're the only swing voter in America. Think about that. We're the only swing voter in America. That's our competitive advantage. That's why the parties have to pay attention to us. That's why 2026 is going to be the year of the Latino voter.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Latino Vote Podcast, our holiday Palooza as we head into Christmas. Mike Madrid, Merry Christmas, old man.
A Merry Christmas to you, Chuck. Good to have you back in the States. I'm not there yet. I'm still down in Mexico. Posadas have started. The celebrations of December have started. December is my favorite time of the year to be here in Mexico, but it's good to have at least one of us back in the United States to hold down the fort. And I'm looking forward to this last year-end discussion, and what a year it was, brother.
Well, just to be clear, I did make it back last week to record a podcast that y'all can go and look at with our good buddy Ferdinand down in Miami to go over that Miami's race while you were making your way across the world. Also this weekend while I was back in D.C., Mike Madrid, I turned 57 on Saturday, 57 years young.
Ooh, you look great. You look great.
For an old man. And we'll talk about it at the end of the podcast. I'm going to spend New Year's and Christmas this year wrestling a gorilla and riding a zebra, just so we're all clear.
Okay, come to me. Come to me.
It's going to be a fun holiday season.
Are you going on a safari?
Yes, 2 of them.
Oh, God. Of course you are.
I'm going to go to the Rwandas, and me and a silverback's going to get it on. And then I'm going to go next door to Tanzania, and I'm going to ride the ass end out of a zebra.
That's got to be, we need to get some of that on video. Please get a cameraman down there with you.
Ooh-wee. But before we get to my safaris at the end of this, let's talk about, since this is the last podcast of the year, me and you, our jet setters, are here in the same place talking to each other. I thought it would be really cool if we did like a year-end review. We are about 1 year in to your president being in charge of this damn nation. It seems like he's done a great job. I heard him the other day say that the economy was an A+++. What do you think, Madrid?
I think Trump fatigue syndrome has finally set in, and I can't think of a bigger turn of political events than where we started last year at this time when the MAGA coalition was ascendant. They were convinced they were going to take over the entire world. The Democratic Party was wringing its hands and thinking it was all over, the end of the world was coming. And now it's the exact opposite. I think people have had it with Donald Trump. The MAGA coalition is breaking. Latinos specifically have found their footing and are pushing back. A lot of our voters are coming back away from Trump, back away from the Republican Party, giving the Democrats a second opportunity to kind of get things right and get things fixed. And I am starting to see some glimmers that maybe they're going to get it. Maybe they're going to figure it out. So I'm hopeful, brother. I'm hopeful for where this is all heading next year. And I'm also grateful that people are finally waking up and this fever swamp of Trumpism seems to be breaking.
It seems like, and I think you are the one I want to ask about this, is it seems like when you look at all of the polls that have come out after New Jersey and Virginia, and CNN had some polling out, and I forgot who the other outfit was, have I read it right? It seems like Donald Trump is at an all-time low, A. Wait, let me get finished. I want you to respond to these other two. But also really taking a hit on healthcare, taking a hit on the economy. His numbers are pretty stable on the border because he closed the border. I give him that for sure. But it seems like, now I know we take the polling numbers with a grain of salt, but am I correct that now his polling numbers are some of the lowest places they've been?
Historic low for both terms of office. He's in bad shape. He's losing Republican MAGA supporters. It's cutting into the bone now. The real question is, can this go lower? As somebody who's been watching his numbers very, very closely for 6-8 years now, only in the wake of January 6th, and I mean like the 2 or 3 weeks after January 6th, did he start to lose hardcore Republican-based support. He's now doing the same exact thing. And as you just pointed out, he's losing it on the issues that matter at the moment. Healthcare is going to become a much bigger concern as premiums start to spike, as the Republicans fumble yet again on what's to do with healthcare. And the economy, he's negative 25-ish now. I mean, horrible numbers. He's basically at where Joe Biden was at Joe Biden's worst reading of the economy. So it's completely his economy. Everyone, including Republicans, blame him, rightfully so. the economy is getting worse. They're facing history. They're facing a bad issues matrix, and they're facing a man who's clearly let the old man in the door in terms of Trump and him being a messenger for the midterms. It's not looking good if you're a Republican right now, which is why you're seeing the Marjorie Taylor Greenes turn tail. You're seeing the Heritage Foundation and Turning Point USA. Both of them are in the midst of massive civil wars. All the social media influencers are jockeying for a post-Trump world. It's a disaster, brother. It's a disaster. And like you said, on immigration, he's upside down on immigration, but nobody's concerned about immigration anymore because he got the one thing that, he touted the most under control. People don't think the border's out of control anymore because it's not. So even on the issue that you're winning on, people aren't concerned about it. So it ain't helping you anymore.
J.D. Vance was in Pennsylvania 7 this week, Mike. Me and you've talked about Pennsylvania 7, this large Puerto Rican Dominican population around Bethlehem and Allentown. That's where they had talked about the floating island of trash and all of the things, right? So he was there with a freshman Republican congressman, and J.D. Vance said the reason that the economy is doing so low and doing so bad was because of immigrants. Immigrants had made housing prices be out of control because they always revert back to their safe place, and they're desperate to get back on their footing, to your point. So I think you make the case for me there. Another thing that's really funny is that numbers, you sit back and watch these guys. You can just watch, they telegraph this stuff. Me and you were talking about mediocre white men before we went live. It makes me chuckle because now, today, he's talking about doing an executive order on marijuana. He is so desperate to have something popular. He wants to decriminalize marijuana, which I'm down with. I'm with it. He also wants to take on, I heard this morning, military contractors because he thinks that they're raping and pillaging the Pentagon. And guess what? I bet they do. And I bet that there's a lot of waste there. And he could get Chuck Roach on board on both of those issues. That's how desperate he is to talk about something instead of the price of ground beef. Correct, Michael?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You also keep in mind some of those contracts, if he made it widespread, his own family is going to be involved in. His own sons are partners in a lot of these firms that are getting a lot of these DoD contracts. So, it'll be the usual Trump, three-ring circus sideshow to kind of keep us distracted from the fact that the economy is collapsing. But the one thing that we have learned, Chuck, is that people, they can't get past their own lying eyes on the reality that meat is through the roof, that groceries are more expensive, that the rent is too damn high. Like, you can lie to people about foreign aid. You can lie to people about Ukraine. You can lie to people about all sorts of stuff, but you can't lie to them when they go down to the grocery store and see that prices are getting more expensive. And for whatever reason, that seems to be what finally broke, or is breaking anyway, this cultish mindset that somehow everything is Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden's fault and none of it is Trump's. And now it's just undeniably on his lap. And the old man, like I said, the old man is acting like an old man. He's like a doddering, crazy old uncle at Thanksgiving, talking madness and building ballrooms and just completely out of touch with where the American people are. So I, for one, again, am hopeful at this moment that the midterms, I think, are going to be decisive. I'm sure we'll do a lot of episodes on the redistricting changes that came up and how Latino voters will go through all the races.
Didn't that come to bear? A friend of mine named Mike Madrid maybe talked about Dummy Mander about 7-8 months ago, and everybody made fun of him. I'm here to tell you, as the Democrat here defending a Republican, that Mike Madrid was right.
Man, it's going to be wild. Those races, I'm going to fly down when you're down in the Rio Grande Valley. We'll do a live show with that Bobby Polito race or in some of those seats and talk to people on the ground. But boy, that is a crazy change of circumstances where the Republicans shot themselves in the foot. What are you seeing? What's the big defining issues you saw this year, Chuck?
I think one was this gerrymandering thing, the big changes in California and Texas, right? Today, I'm going to interview a Latino candidate in the 35th district, an untalked about district it's in San Antonio now, and it goes up 35 a little bit. It used to be Greg Casar's district, just so all of you know, but they changed it completely. But it's a Latino majority district. But again, they assume all these Latinos are going to vote in the Trump way. It's an R plus 12 district for Trump. But this is a race that's easy single digits when Trump's not on the ballot. And this is going to be a more of a bellwether, actually, than the Polito race or others, if we can get a good candidate. So I'm going to talk to a Marine veteran named John Lira, who's running there on my Substack show today to give him some publicity out there, because I think folks like him, I was talking to a reporter at CBS yesterday, and they were talking about all these people running in all these different primaries. Yesterday, we launched a campaign in Utah, won for Eva Lopez Chavez, a city councilwoman, 29 years old. She'll be the only Latino running in a seat that most folks would be like, Utah, Salt Lake City. Well, this is my Mike Madrid's North Carolina. There are a lot of Latinos in Salt Lake City. It's almost 20%. And the Eva race there, she's running, it's open. This is the one where, back to Mike's gerrymandering, the courts drew a whole new district there, and it's a D+24. So you have all these Democrats running, the former member who's super conservative is running. He was a pro-life Democrat, so he probably won't go very far in a D+24 seat, but he has lots of money in name ID. Bernie Sanders has got some left-winger in it, and then I've got a 29-year-old Latina city councilwoman. I say that to obviously say something nice about Eva. But the Eva story, this is the thing that really jumps out at me that Chuck Rocha wind up, is the Eva Lopez Chavez story, and you should all go to her website and donate to her, is being told in districts all over America. In the New Jersey special election to replace Mikey Sherrill, there's a Latina running named Ana Lilia Mejia, who worked for me at Bernie Sanders. She was my political director at Bernie. In Pennsylvania 7, in Colorado 8, in all of these places, Arizona 6, the ones you expect, but then there's all these other Latinos running. So when we talk about the Latino vote moving back left because they're pissed, they're a group of activist Latinos are taking it a step further and running for office. When I sat down with Eva, who I've known since she was 18, and I said, why are you running? You're 29. There'll be plenty of time to run. She said, I'm sick and tired of seeing ICE in our neighborhoods locking up people, and none of our fucking prices has went down. So it's just one thing after another. And if we got to send somebody to D.C. to fight Donald Trump and Republicans, I want to be the one to fight them. And I was like, oh, we can make a commercial out of that.
Well, and you did. It's fantastic. And we'll put it in the link below here. So a couple things. First is any listeners that want us to examine some of these races more closely, do that. But the fact that these races are popping up all over the country, Chuck, is a story in and of itself. You and I, let's talk about this offline too. We need to do a little study between our two firms on just how many Latino candidates are going to be running this year, because it's going to start exploding now. We're hitting.
I bet it's more than ever before.
Oh, it's going to start hitting every 2 years now. It's going to start growing exponentially. Latino candidates are going to be blowing up absolutely everywhere. And I want to make sure that we're giving an audience to these folks, that we're giving people the opportunity to make their pitch to our listeners, to kind of get some contributions online, that we kind of coordinate all the fundraising so that we can have more Latino candidates across the entire spectrum. I don't care what your politics are. The more Latino voices are in the system, the better it is for the country. And you and I need to kind of take the lead on that. Maybe 2026, that'll be our New Year's resolution, is how do we kind of come up with that sort of a schematic to make sure that all of these candidates are getting more money. Our listeners can contribute $5 to the top 20 Latino candidates a month or whatever it is, to kind of help get these candidates fueled, get them mounted, get them running, and we can provide an audience for them to help mobilize something on a national level. What do you think of that?
I think that's spot on. I'd love to see, our friends over at Crooked Media do this, where they have their listeners come in and sign up, and then they do a campaign work in there through the money they raise from their listeners and volunteers. Maybe we identify some of these, me and you go through and dissect which are the biggest opportunities, and maybe have some Latino vote IE work done in some of those races. Could be something, where we go in and put our finger on a scale where me and you can agree, Democrat and Republican, that this person, it could be a safe Democratic seat, safe Republican seat. Like you, I want to see more Latinos in office. I think our friends at Naleo probably can help us some with this as well, figuring out who's filed to run. But between our two firms, we can do an analysis of how many are running, because I think that's a story and an op-ed for me and you probably to write into itself. Not only are Latinos pissed, not only are they moving, but now they're filing to run for office that they never would have run for before, whether it's in Chicago, New Jersey, Utah. Of course, they expect it in California and Texas, and that's where you started this conversation. And I think that's the biggest change, is these districts, when you have Texas redistrict and then you had California redistrict, it moved the line so much that there's a lot of faces moving around and Congress is changing. And you've had more Republican retirements this year than you've seen in a long time. I think we're at 14 now, Mike. So the face of our Congress is changing. And to your point, I think that was your point with everything's becoming more Latino because we're just getting be a bigger part of the whole puzzle, right?
Yeah, and I think the moment, and anybody listening to this, I really want you to kind of take a second, breathe this in. This is why Chuck and I are doing this. But one of the frustrating parts about being a Latino political consultant is there's never been a real place for us to go with candidates to go and get that initial tranche of money. And let me explain what I mean by that. Like if I'm a Black candidate or an Asian Pacific Islander candidate, a Jewish candidate, a Persian candidate, Greek candidate,
A woman in Emily's list.
a woman on Emily's list, everybody has a group to go to, and they will all open up their checks and just support that candidate and make them credible from day one, from moment one. Latinos have never had that. Cubans, maybe a small exception down in South Florida, but everybody else, there's no when I get a Latino candidate, it's not like, oh yeah, okay, let's go to our Latino donors. And everybody writes a ton of checks, and suddenly you're at the top tier. You're running at the top. We have the opportunity, not because we've got a bunch of millionaires or billionaire Latinos, because there aren't them, but we've got the numbers where if everybody can do $25, $100, $1,000, we can use our collective numbers to organize everybody and use this as a way to build these startup candidates in a way that can compete with other constituencies and allow us to get more Latino candidates, the money, the resources to mount credible campaigns early. And that's what I think we want to focus on. That's what we're going to be talking more about is with platforms like this on the Latino Vote podcast, the family that we've built, the people that are interested, whether it's $5 or $25 or $1,000, if you can give $20 to 10 candidates that you've never known in different parts of the country and everybody else is doing that same thing, we can create something that we've always lacked as a community. So that's kind of what I think might be the promise of all of these candidates, all of these networks of us developing and growing as a community, as business owners, as a professional class, as people who are kind of pushing the boundaries in our own industries to say, hey, we can do a little bit more, not even a lot, just a little bit. If everybody does a little bit the way Latinos do, we can have comadres, compadres kind of getting in there and supporting candidates and making these campaigns real.
The best and the worst of the year to me was we knew Latino voters would move. We knew they would be mad, and we knew there would be some reflection back after there was such a dramatic move to the right when Donald Trump abandoned. If Donald Trump would have left tariffs alone, if he would have kept his mouth shut, this bounce back would have been much less. But he did all the wrong things. He made things more expensive, and he does stupid shit like talking about Rob Reiner in the most disgusting ways possible and all the stupid shit that he's done, which is just built on itself to put him in a position where Mike described these polling numbers. So one of the biggest surprises to me has been about the amount of movement we've seen in the places that we've seen it so far. Again, I don't say that that's nationally. I say it's where we've seen people vote because we can measure that. Me and Mike are pragmatists. We're looking at what are the results. Don't tell me about a poll. Sure, a poll gives me some idea. But when you go and vote, that's just real people voting. So the Miami mayor's race means something. Is it the be all end all? No, but it means something. I'm really going to be interested as we move into the spring. We start having primaries and people start voting again. People that have March primaries start voting in February. That means in Texas, they're voting in February. In places, in other places, they're voting in early mail-in ballots, right? And I'm interested to see what this movement will mean in those primaries because Latinos and other voters will get to pick what kind of voter, or not voter, what kind of Democrat do you want to support? Because there'll be multiple kind of Democrats to support in lots of places, right? I just described the Utah race with a 29-year-old queer Latina who loves to fly fish, by the way. And do you like that? And somebody else may like the white guy. In Texas, Mike, they have to pick in a Senate race between a black candidate and a white candidate. In other places, there'll be other choices of ideologicals and others. How do you feel about how the vote and these primaries are going to shake out and what you've seen so far this fall? Is it juxtaposed to the spring? Did I say that right? Juxtaposed, or is it just I don't remember that kind of word.
Yeah. So look, you're hitting on something important that we need to be keeping an eye on, which is going to be that sort of momentum and that energy. We all know for the past 30 years, Latinos have historically had lower turnout rates than any other constituency, any other community. What is happening with ICE and the ICE raids, and I have been barking like a hit dog. How was that, Chuck? Barking like a hit dog about keeping us focused on the economy. And it is the economy. But there's also no question that the ICE raids and the crackdowns, this overreach from the government has mobilized and terrorized our community in a way that I have not seen since probably Prop 187 in the mid-1990s in California. It's extraordinary. It's real. People are feeling it and people are responding to it. this is a moment to understand something. Things are going to change. Change is coming, but we need to channel this energy, channel this frustration, channel this rage in the right way to get people to turn out and get them further engaged in terms of voting. If we see Latinos match non-Hispanic whites, white folks in terms of turnout, the whole country changes. And people really need to understand that. All it is
Hang on,
is
Mike. Say that again.
Yeah.
What Mike is saying is that the Latino turnout, not persuasion, not who's voting, but just the raw turnout numbers.
if just
White
the
people-
term, if just
Tell
if
them the
Lat-
difference, Mike, between what the percentage normally is of turnout.
Yeah, so normally we see about a 5 to 6 point difference between white folks who turn out to vote and Latinos who have the lowest turnout rate of any race or ethnicity in the entire country. If you saw us just match, not exceed, but just match white voters, the entire country's complexion, politics, and attitude changes completely. And I don't just mean right or left, although that's true. You have to look at, and again, this has been really fascinating to me, Chuck. I'm watching when the Cuban Republicans in Florida are saying the ICE raids, the immigration raids are too much. It tells you something, that Latinos can be a moderating effect in this Republican Party. I wrote a book on it. I believe it, and they're behaving it. It's actually happening right now. And some listeners may or may not like this, but Latinos will have a moderating effect on the Democratic Party too by making it focus on cost of living and the economy, because that's what's driving our behavior. Here's the good news about all that. If you're somebody who's animated by all of these cultural issues, if you're more motivated by the ICE raids and the immigration crackdowns, or on the right, if you're more motivated by the border situation, the reality is, once there are more Latinos having a more reasonable conversation about those topics, history has proven that the way that we as a community approach these issues is much more moderate, much more reasonable, much more centrist, and much more focused on solving the problem than it is exacerbating the racial tensions which have afflicted us, not just as a community, but as a country for the past 25 years. So my point is, it's not that Latinos have a specific agenda that's different, but no question, we have a different tone, tenor, and way of solving these problems than everybody else, and certainly than white folks do. We're not the ones that are being animated by all these cultural issues. We're not the one injecting this poison into our body politic and making people hate one another. Yes, the border's out of control. Yes, there's a humane way to handle this. We should be employing and understanding both. We are literally, because we're swinging back and forth. Chuck, we're the only swing voter in America. Think about that. We're the only swing voter in America. That's our competitive advantage. That's why the parties have to pay attention to us. That's why 2026 is going to be the year of the Latino voter. All of the congressional races, there's far more candidates that are going to be running than ever before. They're all going, whether Talarico or Crockett, wins in Texas, is going to be entirely reliant on the Latino vote. Watch what happens in congressional races in the Central Valley of California, in Colorado, in Salt Lake City, 20% Latino. That vote. If you organize the Latino vote behind a Latino candidate in a multi-candidate field, you win. And we can go to Passaic, New Jersey, Montana, Tennessee, not just the Miamis where it happened the other night. It is literally everywhere now. The country is just beginning to realize it. And so that's a long way of saying, Chuck, yes, there's going to be a Latino that fits ideologically all along the spectrum, whether it's in New York City, where Zoran Mamdani wins his vote share, or whether it's Miami, where it's a Cuban Republican, or whether it's in the Coachella Valley with Congressman Ruiz, or Los Angeles has got a mayoral race coming up in the next few weeks and or months. Los Angeles, it's literally everywhere. And so we are hitting this incredibly spectacular moment in Latino political history that is going to redefine who we are as a people, who we are as a country. And we are going to see more Latino DSA candidates. We are going to see more Latino Trump MAGA candidates, but we're going to see far, far more with everybody in between. And that's why I think this conversation needs to happen and needs to get bigger, better, and build a better, bigger voice for anybody, all Latinos looking to get engaged in the process.
Let me pull on that thread for a second. I had done some research for another program. No, Mike, I'm not doing another podcast with somebody. I was talking about it on the TVs. I looked at the 2022 primary election results in Texas, statewide elections 4 years ago, off year, because that's the best way to measure it for all of you there. And I do that to make sure that Mike Madrid don't jump on me about doing and comparing different election years that are presidential. So 22, last time we had an off-year election there, Mike. Guess what the demographic breakdown, I'm going to tell you, was of the primary, the primary Democratic electorate. I looked at it by race because I was looking at this Talarico Crockett thing. And I was like, how many black folks vote? There's not that many, but they over-index in primaries, and Latinos are this big thing, but how many of them are voting in primaries? So this was 4 years ago, and these numbers will change based off of some experts in Texas who thinks that some of these numbers will go down a little and some will go up because of growth, mainly Latinos in Texas. So 46%, y'all, of the electorate in the last primary in Texas, Democratic primary, was white. 46%. 30% was Latino. 21% was Black. 3% were AAPI, Asian folk. Now, experts would tell me that 46 will probably go down to 44, that 30 should probably go up to 32 or 3, that the Black number stays pretty consistent, and that the Asian number will go up 1 or 2. So that is an electorate that Jasmine Crockett and James Talarico now have to look at to figure out, because you have to win a primary before you can win a general. Number one rule in politics, besides you never get any time back. So that tells you what Mike Madrid said about the Latino vote being the difference. There's not a doubt in my mind that Jasmine Crockett wins 90% of the Black vote. There's not a doubt in my mind that James Talarico at least wins 50%, if not 60% of the white vote. I think that number could get to 70 or 80, or it could be down to 45. That's up to him and his campaign, leaving the Latino vote and probably the Asian vote together as the determining factor in that primary. Is that how you read it too, Mike?
100% right. And I think Texas is a good example because what you just outlined is the exact model that is going to define most races or a plurality of races for the next decade. What Chuck Rocha just said is the future of American politics for the next 10 to 15 years. That's where all the demographic trends are heading. So when you're seeing Talarico versus Crockett in a Democratic primary, folks, that's a preview of coming attractions for the next decade in Democratic primaries. That's what's going to happen. And the Latino vote is not going to break 90% one way for one candidate or the other. It's basically testing at like 50% Talarico, 40% Crockett right now. Can it move? Yes. Will it move? Yes. Both candidates are aggressively building up their Latino infrastructure right now, aggressively. Jasmine Crockett's had her problems on this rollout. Said some really, really sharp-tongued things, which I think is fascinating because you're going to start seeing this very significant racial and cultural divide between Black and brown people in this country in the way that they approach understanding minorities. And it's going to be an issue. It should be an issue. It's uncomfortable. It's awkward. But I think she's made some very significant missteps. But there are some commonalities where Latinos, especially in this current environment, are clearly being told by white Americans that you're not a part of this country. Not all, but a lot, but plenty. Pew Research, we just did this episode with Mark Hugo Lopez for the first time in polling history in this country. In history, Latinos don't feel welcome in this country. They've got a negative view of the country almost entirely based on the cultural and political climate. It has nothing to do with the economy. That is profound. So how are Latinos going to emerge in this new era where there's tensions in their own party from Black folks on the left, power structures, by the way, that are incredibly threatened by emergent Latino voters? This history in Los Angeles and other parts of the country would tell us this Black-brown conflict is very real. Power does not just give itself up. It's a fight to go get it. But at the same time, white Americans aren't, as we all know, the most welcoming to this new changing America either. So Latinos are kind of, trying to wiggle their way up through and say, wait, we're getting bigger faster than any other group. Neither side is comfortable with us. They're both attacking us from their own perspectives. We've got to chart a new path. And brothers and sisters, Talarico versus Crockett in the Texas primary is going to be exhibit A for the next generation on how a successful Latino campaign is run, because it's going to determine, the vote break is going to determine who wins and who loses that race.
Your point about it being a story that's going to be told out made me think about two things. Stop. When you talked to the polling firm with Pew, and you weren't here last week when I was doing the podcast, but I was in a hotel in Dubai. Chuck Rocha was in Dubai, and not goodbye, hey bye. I was in the Dubais, and when you have a 10-hour layover, they put you in a hotel. And if you fly in the Emirates airline, they put you in a nice hotel. Mm-hmm. And I was like, good God almighty. Anyway, I was shitting in high cotton. So I went to the gym. And when I go to the gym, I hadn't had very good internet because I'd been out on this research vessel in the middle of the Indian Ocean. My first thing, Mike Madrid, was listening to the Latino podcast to see if y'all said anything about me. A, you didn't mention my name, and I was pissed. B, it was one of the most informative things I had ever listened to, because the numbers that he had gotten into and those approval and the way they thought about the country and the way that looked when they talked about the economy were two different things. They were just mad, felt like they were left out. So that is like groundbreaking to me, and it should be something to Candace is saying how you should start talking to Latino voters.
Exactly.
Now, to get back on track here, you talked about Jasmine and James. In Dallas, Texas, the same thing's fixing to play out in another way. So there was a safe congressional seat made by the Republicans in redistricting where they took away Julie Johnson's congressional seat that went from Dallas into East Texas, and then they made a new one in like central Dallas, where they also gave some of what Mark Vesey had in Fort Worth and did away with his district completely, made it just a Fort Worth district. What they did pretty much is eliminate one district where there's just 2 Democratic districts instead of 3 in Dallas. So stay with me here. So you have Julie Johnson now, who 40% of her district's in her Dallas part, so she's going to run for that seat. When Jasmine Crockett, who also could take either one of these seats, decides she's going to run for the Senate, Colin Allred, who's already in the Senate race, drops out of the Senate race, Mike, and says, I'll just go back to run for Congress, and I'm going to run for this Dallas seat that Julie Johnson is currently going to run in. Keep in mind, this gets even better. Julie Johnson replaced Colin Allred in that other seat when he ran for the Senate the first time. She was a longtime state rep, a white woman from Dallas, very successful trial attorney, lesbian's got a wonderful wife, just a great labor vote, like just a good, solid Democrat, not a left wing, right wing, good Democratic vote. So now that big Chuck Rocha windup is to make Mike Madrid's point. You've got a black man, Colin Allred, running against a white gay woman in a seat that's 51% Latino. Now, Latinos don't vote at near the level black people do in primaries. Again, Mike Madrid's point. You have black people voting about 10 points more than Latinos in a primary in turnout numbers. So they've controlled the Dallas. Now, Mike is going to come tell me about Compton and other places in LA that's already lived through this. But that's why this story will tell out over and over again. Right, Mike?
You just nailed it. So listeners should rewind that, listen to that again, because what we're witnessing right now, what we're going to see in 2026 is going to be the exact dynamics and the exact strategic decision-making from candidates in Democratic primaries and in general elections that are going to determine what direction the Democratic Party heads in ideologically, racially, culturally, socially, politically. And this, like I said, we saw some of this stuff early with Nanette Barragan's race when she was first elected. Chuck, you were involved with some of that stuff. Years ago in the South Bay area of Los Angeles, it was a black-white fight. It was changing demographics. Nanette Barragan wins. You got to start seeing a lot of formerly black seats becoming Latino seats. Not always, but turnout's going to be everything. The turnout's going to be everything. And
that's where the tension starts that Mike's talking about.
That's it. You're going to see some fierce battles. Ugly battles, unfortunately, because power doesn't just say, oh, okay, look, there's more. It's a Latino seat. It's over 50% Latino. I will just turn over the seat and as a black candidate, historically black seat, it's no longer a black seat. Go ahead, Latinos. You guys, it's your turn. That doesn't happen in politics. That ain't going to happen. People ain't going to just give it up and go away. But you are going to see younger, more ambitious Latinos deciding to run, like this candidate you have in Salt Lake City. Like, if my time is now, I'm 29, I'm going. We're going to run. That's how change happens. And it's going to be part of this great transformation that America is undergoing. And it's going to be, like I said, these are the preview of coming attractions for what the rest of the country is going to be going through year by year, every year for the next 20 years. So pay real close attention to this stuff, not just because it's going to be interesting, which it's going to be really interesting for 2026, but it's going to tell you how the country is going to wrestle with itself as it changes and emerges into something new over this generation.
I think you're exactly right. I was writing myself a note, thinking about the new year and thinking about us getting together in January and putting together what we had talked about around like a Latino town hall, and getting our buddy Ruben involved and some other folks. We're going to make that happen. I just wrote a note down it's on my list of things to do today to call Ruben. But as all of you think about what Mike and I have been talking about, it's a preview, and we're going to get back on this horse again in January to kind of start digging in district by district. If you know candidates like Eva out there, if you know candidates like Anna Lilia out there, folks that are running in seats that aren't maybe 80% Latino, we expect there to be Latinos in the Texas Valley, the Central Valley. It's going to be really interesting because there's not enough Latino managers, consultants, or posters. God, there's almost no Latino posters that can go in and actually put together a culturally competent strategic vision for a campaign that can relate with Latinos. They're well-intentioned white folks, and a lot of them will get close enough to win in a wave year. That's what's bothered me from the beginning on this thing is folks are going to get somewhat close. There's going to be this wave, and they're going to think they got it all figured out, and we're going to get our ass beat in 28 because they're going to have given themselves the wrong signals. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about it. But I want to keep this more on a positive lens as we kind of get to the end of the year here and say that, I'm thankful for Mike. I'm thankful for this podcast. I'm thankful for lots of things that we get the honor and the privilege to bring this to you every day or once a week. Me and Mike were off air a little bit in the beginning. We would have never envisioned that we had so many people listen to us every week, give us feedback, no matter where I travel or Mike travels. There's folks coming up to us and telling us, and as I reflect at the end of the year about the things that I'm thankful for, it's the community, the community who's always had our back. There's not, me and Mike were talking about this as well. Like we were always just 2 or 3 or 4 of us in the room. And now there's a lot more of us. And there's an Eva running for Congress. And there's an Anna Lilia. There's this new young campaign manager somewhere you hear about. That makes me very happy and very hopeful. And that's exactly why we started this podcast. Mike, what would you say you're helpful and hopeful for as we move into the new year?
Every episode that we record, I got a great message. There's a real shout out from Mickey Ibarra. Mickey is kind of one of the OG guys.
Worked in the Clinton administration.
Yeah, and he's done so much to pull the community together, city by city, state by state, region by region. He sends a nice note just saying, what you guys are doing on the Latino Vote podcast is awesome. Keep going. It gives me this understanding that some of the OG guys that were doing this, and Chuck and I were not the first. I mean, we're old dudes, but we're not the first. I mean, this has been going on since the 30s and 40s, at least in living memories. There have been people that have been carving this path. We are fortunate enough to, I think, be Gen Xers. Chuck just turned 57. I just turned 35 the other day.
Oh shit.
So, we have always, one of the reasons we launched this and try to start building this community, this network, was this recognition that we've got a responsibility at this time as we start to explode onto the scene to kind of help everybody, leverage everybody into a bigger, better place. We've had Republican Latinas on this show. We've had Democratic Socialists on the show. We've had community organizers on the show. You
had a Republican state party chairman?
Jessica Milan Patterson, who did great work with Latino voters. We've had Latina pollsters. We've had Latino pollsters. We've had community organizers and activists. The goal here, candidates, the goal here is to elevate everybody. And I haven't agreed with a lot of the things that our guests have on the show. I know Chuck hasn't either. That's not the point. The point is to have a bigger picture understanding of our community and recognize that every one of us has a responsibility. Every one of us has a responsibility to reach down and pull up the next generation of people, to provide an internship for somebody, to write a check to a candidate, to hire a Latino vendor. Every step you take is all a part of reaching down and pulling people up. There were not a lot of people that were there to help pull Chuck and I up, but those that were there did it. And I can look back and say there was one person who couldn't help me much, but they helped a little bit. And be that person. That's what we're trying to build here. And I said, like, I know Chuck holds his breath sometimes, and I go, I want to bring this person on the show, and he's like, okay, bring him on. That's not somebody I would be with, and vice versa. But that's not the point, man. If you're saying I'm not going to listen to you because I don't agree with you of the way you think, denies us of our community, denies our people a lasting shot at what we're creating here. We've got to transcend these small niche partisan understandings of Latinidad and recognize we are going to be the stewards of this great country, of this great nation, as it emerges from these dark moments during this decade. The last 10 years have been a dark history. The only way we're going to get out of this positively is by being represented across the spectrum, but having a connectedness to each other by our culture, by our heritage. And what I think Chuck and I try to exemplify is Chuck and I may not agree on a lot of things politically, but I don't for 1 second doubt that this brother's got the heart and the passion to fight for his community and make people better. And that's all I need. If I can give him that much grace, give him that much leash, give him that much benefit of the doubt, we don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to agree on much, actually. I just need to know where his heart and his commitment is. He's shown that to me every day that I've known him. And I just want all of us, everybody who's engaged in this podcast as a community, to feel that same way, because, man, that's how real change is going to be made. I don't need to be right all the time. God knows that. I'm a Republican. I've been wrong a lot. Yeah, but I give a shit. I give a damn. And I'm going to fight for my people. I'm going to fight for poor people. I'm going to fight for working people. I'm going to fight for Latinos as we emerge into this new American country. And I'm just grateful to be with you, Chuck. I'm glad that you spend the time on this. We're not making money doing this. We're here to just kind of be a voice.
Yeah, we need to talk about that in the new year. I need to up my price. And you should know, Mike, as we're sitting here, I just got a text message from a young man named John Paul Torres. He is a city councilman in Michigan in the 11th congressional seat, and he is running for Congress. He said the district is 18% Latino now.
There you go.
So these are stories. John Paul Torres in Michigan 11.
Yeah, well, so that's it, guys. Listeners, like, share the podcast, give us those names. People are listening all over the country. If you've got guest suggestions, if you've got race suggestions that we should be looking at, if you've got pollsters that we should be highlighting or amplifying, let us know, and we will go from there. But that's what I'm grateful for, man. I love doing this. I love knowing that we're going to reconnect every week and share some ideas. And I also get to hear all the best stories of your world travel. So makes me feel like I've got money.
Make sure to follow me on my social medias, because for Christmas, I don't have the Rocha boys, who are my grandsons. They go stay with their mama's family every other year. So this year we don't have them. So it opens up me and Ebony to go see something. And we were like, I want to go see the gorillas before they're gone. So we're going to go to Rwanda, and I'm going to what they call trekking. If you've watched the latest Kevin Hart special, he talks about doing this in Rwanda. He took the trip I'm taking where he trekked in, and he just assumed the whole time that these gorillas were behind some kind of glass. Well, they are not. You come face to face, so much so, Mike Madrid, they make you wear a dust mask so you don't get the gorilla sick. Now, you know me, I haven't always followed the rules like I should. My wife would be the first to tell you I'm the first one off the boat. But I'm going to try to act right and see some things I've never seen and do a dry walkthrough, because the whole plan is to take my boys in 4 or 5 years when they're a little bit older. I'm going to do a walkthrough, is what we call it in the campaign world. Just do a little opposition research, and then we're going to go over to Tanzania and do a real safari over there. When I was a little boy, we didn't have much money, and we had 3 channels. But every Saturday night after Gunsmoke, the Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom would come out. And I would watch the Mutual of Omaha's people you can count on when the going gets tough. I still remember that, and I'm 57 years old. I'm going to go see some of these animals.
Good for you, brother. I'm excited. I can't wait to see the pictures. We'll post them the way that we always do here. We'll post that advertisement of that candidate running for Congress in Salt Lake City in the new district. But give us some feedback, guys. We need that engagement. Ask us those questions. Tell us what you think. Have us focusing where you want us to focus on, and let us know what you want to see in the coming year, brother. But thanks for commandeering this. You're a better host than I am, and I appreciate you, buddy.
Everybody, make sure it's holiday season. Go see your mom and daddy if you're lucky enough to have them. Buy them a big present, hug them up around their neck, wish everybody you know a happy Christmas. Look at Christmas to that MAGA uncle of yours about what you like about him, not about what you hate about them. I do that with my brother-in-law every Christmas holidays. We go fishing. We don't talk about politics. We need to choose love and not hate. And from the entire Latino Vote podcast team, me, Mike, Andres, and the 1,000 of productions assistants, we wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays.